Hey dudes, it's Lerald, and we've got another big update to Toxic Rain Pathfinder. So just to talk about some of the content that this build has blasted in increasing difficulty, if I'm being real, I've taken down Uber bosses, I've crushed a lot of tier 17s, and I've cleared a lot of tier 16.5 maps. It's very strange, the state of PoE 1's difficulty curve right now. It's backwards. It's like you have to prove you can handle eating straight ghost peppers before you can have a little bit of jalapeno on your pizza. I did make like 40 divines from Uber bosses today. That number might double by the end of the day if I manage to sell all the rest of the uniques and watcher size that I've gotten from them. So all in all, not a bad bit of business. Even if I'm not the hugest fan of doing Uber bosses, they can definitely be profitable. I think they're good for the game, good chase content, all that. I just find bossing a little, whatever, boring. Either way, let's get into it. But first, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Also join our new Discord, Skipping Sleep Studio, which covers both of the YouTube channels that we run. There is a link in the description. All right, on to the update. So, as before, I'm trying to keep everything very simple and automated. I really want to have as few keybinds as possible. You know, we've got Life Flask, Toxic Rain, and then mobility skills. And then we also have our keybind for bringing our Mercenary over to us, which gives them about a 20-25% heal. That's pretty much it, and that has been working really well for all of the content that I've been doing, and hitting that heal / call the mercenary to you button really is helpful for keeping them alive in some of the more dangerous content. At this point, as long as I'm hitting that button fairly frequently, the only thing that my mercenary really can die to is reflect maps. If I wasn't paying attention and I put in a reflect map, she's gonna die, otherwise we're pretty much fine. In terms of the upgrades that I've continued to make to the character, there have been some pretty substantial gear crafts, but most of them are really not very difficult in terms of like complexity, with one very significant exception that I'll get to. So in terms of the uniques, the only two uniques that I'm using in the build right now still are Tides of Time, which I do have a very nice Tides of Time, a 3 life flasks and 3 utility flasks. You do also always want the 3 utility flasks. That's pretty much like a given. Getting 3 life flask charges per second, or every 3 seconds, versus getting like 1 or 2. It's not a huge difference, but it does help with really having good life flask uptime, which is pretty helpful for Ubers, not really so big of a deal for actual mapping. And then if you really want to push your Tides of Time to the maximum, you can use Fertile Catalyst on it, and that will actually increase the amount of life recovery you get out of your flask. As you can see, it goes from 100 to 120. I think that's a better catalyst option than getting like, you know, a little bit of extra armor and evasion rating. You get about 200 or so more life per second out of your life flask. Pretty good. I've also gone with a nice corruption implicit on the lightning coil. My ideal lightning coil for the current state of the setup would be like a double corrupted implicit of like % increased damage and then reduced extra damage taken from crits. I'm just a huge fan of reduced extra damage taken from crits. One of my favorite bonuses, because crit is such a painful map mod, and being able to cut that value in half or significantly further down with tattoos is really good. Some of this jewelry I've just simply bought outright. Like, this is one that I think probably just came from somebody's like Kalgur shipments, or just like a nice one that they found on the ground. None of these mods are unique in any way. This is just a really, really good ring with a lot of resists on it, and life and rarity, and then a prefix to craft non-channeling mana cost. And the same goes here with this ring. Good resistances, high strength roll, life, rarity, you know, not really anything super special, but very valuable nonetheless. All right, now I'm gonna move on to the bow craft. I think it took me about 25 or 30 attempts to finally get it slammed together in the Recombinator, and so just to talk a little bit about that. It's really a simple craft once you get the Recombinator to work with you, but it's pretty brutal actually getting that to occur. So what you're looking for is 2 thicket bows that have specific modifiers on them. You can get these out of the trade site. That is how I did it. And I'll actually just pull up the trade site and kind of show the searches that I'm going for. So the modifiers need to be assembled in a very specific way, which is really not intuitive at all. So what you want is level of socketed bow gems. That needs to be +2, obviously. And then damage over time multi, just generic damage over time multiplier, and you want that to be at least 24%. And then you also want this to be on a thicket bow. So what you're wanting to do is put in one side of the Recombinator one of these +2 level of socketed bow gems, and then the 24 to 26% dot multi thicket bows, and I'll just see if I can buy one here. I guess I have to not be D&D. I'll see if I can buy one here, and we'll like cut to me trying to assemble these. And all right, so here I have bow number 1. It doesn't matter what other modifiers are on the bow, just simply that you have the T1, you know, +2 level of socketed bow gems as a prefix, and the T1 dot multi as a suffix on one of the bows, and then T1 attack speed on the other bow. And that's all that matters, right? It's just attack speed local, and that needs to be 17 to 19%. You can use essences to get some of these modifiers, but if you try to recombine multiple essence modifiers together on a single item, it won't work. As you can see, getting a T1 attack speed thicket bow, incredibly cheap. 1 chaos. The harder part is actually getting people to respond, which, lucky me, this happened immediately. First guy I messaged, immediate response. It's a miracle. All right, and so then from here, what we do is we just go to the recombinator and we just shove these 2 bows in together. We are doing predictable recombination. That's why it's, you know, so important that we have these modifiers assembled in this specific way. And then you combine the 3 modifiers together. Now, the reason that it has to be +2 level of socketed bow gems and dot multi on one bow and T1 attack speed on the other bow, and it can't be the opposite. It can't be level of bow gems and attack speed on one and then dot multi on the other, is I don't know why, but for some reason, when I tried doing it the other way, the chance of success, instead of being about 4.1%, which is like roughly 1 in 25, it was like 0.1%. It was like, or 0.019 or something. It was like 1 in several thousand percent when the modifier, like when this prefix was swapped onto the other bow. Don't know why, but it was working like that, so, you know, that's what you gotta do. So you press the button, and then it destroys them, and then, you know, you try it like 30 or 40 more times, and it'll succeed, and then you will have a bow that will look like this once I get it set up here in Craft of Exile. All right, so this is what your bow will look like. It'll be a 3 mod rare bow with these specific modifiers: +2 level of socketed bow gems, T1 attack speed, and T1 dot multi. From here, all you have to do to get yourself to a basically perfect bow is craft can't roll attack mods, and then you hit it with 1 regular exalt that's guaranteed to put +1 level of socketed gems on it. Then you hit it with a Hunter's Exalt, and you hope that the mod roll on it is good, but it's guaranteed to be increased chaos damage over time. It's just whether it's 60 to 69, or 70 to 79, or 80 to 89, or 90 to 94, depends on how lucky you're feeling. And then once you've done all of that, you can just simply craft chaos.multi, recraft that until you get to 20%. And then you 6-link the bow, and you craft, you know, harvest attack speed on it. And then it'll look like this: Onslaught Bane. The best possible bow that you can, well, I guess other than that Hunter prefix not being great, but the best possible bow that you could get for Toxic Rain other than a Widowhail, which I will get to in just a minute here. For the boots, for the gloves, for the helm, I all started with fractured items and then just use essences and eldritch currency in order to get like good resistance modifiers, good life mods, you know, guarantee a mod on there that I wanted, like the chance to avoid elemental ailments, or the T1 attack speed, or in this case, just life. Now, as for crafting the quiver, this is easily the most painful of all the crafts. Like, you know, this is like slamming your hand in a car door simulator here. Actually crafting the quiver took me, I think, 50 divines. Well, I mean, we made a whole video about how to craft all of your gear, including like progression from baby gear all the way up to super high level gear. We've talked about how to do the quiver craft in the past. It is a little involved, so I would say check that video out if you don't know how to do it. The same goes with the amulet craft. Getting a +2 amulet is very, very valuable. It is time consuming to like alt spam to get the +1 level of all skill gems on the fractured base, but you know, that +2 amulet is very valuable. So that is definitely, like, if I had to rank the priorities that are like in terms of cost effectiveness, the different like pieces of armor, good for defense, staying alive. The amulet, getting the +2 amulet is definitely the most valuable for increasing your damage and more cost effective than the quiver, which is also very valuable, but very, very expensive to like get a quiver all the way done. One commonly asked question that I do want to touch on with all this gear here is the projectiles pierce an additional target Eldritch Implicit that's an Eater of Worlds implicit on gloves. It's not mandatory, I just like it for Caustic Arrow, but it doesn't do anything with Toxic Rain. You know, you can drop that in favor of getting like a bit of suppression or something out of an Eater of Worlds implicit. You know, if you need to fix your suppression that way, that's one way you could do it. But it does help a bit with clear to have that pierce on your Caustic Arrow. I haven't really changed any of the skills. Like, all the skills are the same as they were before. I've just, like, gotten a +4 in power, and I've gotten, you know, like, level 5 to all of my awakened gems, so nothing has really changed there. I'm not running Grace on my own because my Mercenary, who I guess I can't pull up her window in King's March, but she is running Grace, and she does a pretty good job of staying alive, so I don't feel like I need to run Grace myself, so I'm just sticking with Haste and Malevolence and Petrified Blood. That is part of why I'm not running a Chaos Merc, because I do want the increased aura effect on my Malevolence, and I am using the Mercenary to get like Chill and Shock and Ignite, and getting like a lot of bonuses out of getting all of those elemental ailments out of the Mercenary, and a Mercenary that does either like cold or lightning damage is really good for that, and a Mercenary that does like cold damage, dot damage, bleed damage would be actually very bad for triggering all of those elemental ailments. All right, now let's hit on the passive tree changes, because that's probably the biggest thing that I've done that's like kind of some big changes here. I'm still rocking the 1 cluster jewel as before. I have dropped this quick step section of the tree, including intuition, which is, I mean, it's a set of bonuses that I really like. But I have come over here and I've done a combo that I really enjoy, which is putting in the Light of Meaning over here in this area where I'm taking tons and tons and tons of points, you know, coming over, taking Constitution. If you want an easier time of fixing resistances, which I always like to be at least 60 cold and lightning res over the cap, so that I can run all of the Eater of Worlds alter modifiers. You can take these 2 points along the way, but I have enough resistances on gear to be able to not need them, and you get about 1.5% damage out of each of the proj damage nodes, so you know, not bad, right? Like, I think without the Light of Meaning bonus, it's maybe like 0.8 or 0.9, but still, you know, more damage than 0 damage. You can also then combine that with an Unnatural Instinct over here. So I like to come take Harrier, give you a bit of move speed, which is good, and then come through spell damage, since this is worthless, and then throw an Unnatural Instinct in here. And now you're getting the benefit of all of these small passive nodes, including the like life and life on kill and all of that. And they're also getting overlapped by Light of Meaning, so you're not just getting 3% move speed out of like each of these small passives, you're getting 3% move speed and the Light of Meaning bonus, which I'm using a 6% chaos damage Light of Meaning, so like if I unsocket this Light of Meaning, I'm gonna lose a massive amount of chaos damage out of all of these small passives, as well as all the ones that I've selected in this area. This also gives us a little bit of int, a little bit of dex, a little bit of int here, a little bit of mana regen, you know, it's good. And then because there is an int node up here, we're able to put a tattoo on it, tattoo of the Rungokurai turtle, and then because it's not allocated, we have Unnatural Instinct in the radius, we actually do get the benefit of that. I've also used some tattoos. I already had some tattoos of the Tufo Herbalist along here, just kind of filling in. Because of dropping Quick Step, I have had to take Magebane in order to get enough spell suppression, along with spell suppression from my helm. I'm at exactly 100%, so I can't use any more tattoos of the Tufo Herbalist, although I would love to do so. You know, maybe if I get more dex or something, I'll be able to sort that out. Could technically tattoo in some spell suppression, but that can be quite expensive. I think those tattoos are like 4 divines or something each. And then because I have quite a bit of int, 120, and I think I require 111 for the efficacy at level 20, I've taken basically all of the int nodes along this area and just put tattoos of the Rungokurai turtle into those as well. So I'm at like, I think 35% reduced extra damage from enemy crits. Feels pretty good. So that's the tree for the most part. I did make one other change here as well. I have added Flesh and Flame with Gathering Winds from the Deadeye tree. That's why I have Tailwind. That's why I have the stacking Gathering Winds buff, the Gale Force buff whenever I'm attacking a bunch. So that really adds a lot of move speed and damage and stuff. Obviously, it's not mandatory. It's just cool. The same reason that I got them in foil versions instead of non-foil. I paid, I think, a divine extra for each of these because they are cool, and I like things that are cool. I did also swap my Watcher's Eye around, as well as some of my other jewels. Like you can see, I have Unnatural Instinct with increased area of effect, and you can't be hindered. This one costs like an extra divine over a regular Unnatural Instinct. And then this Ancestral Vision with increased area of effect, that allowed me to not run area of effect as a gloves prefix, get about another % or so of damage out of this prefix instead. And then I also got You Can't Be Maimed on the Light of Meaning that I am using, which cost about an extra divine as well, but now I can't be maimed, can't be hindered, that feels good. And then I am using a Watcher's Eye that gives phasing while affected by haste, which I just really value, but that unaffected by poison while affected by malevolence isn't huge, you know, just a bit of quality of life defensively. I think my preferred one would be phasing while affected by haste, and then like move speed while affected by grace, which does work with the grace from your mercenary. You know, obviously dot multi while affected by malevolence would be good, but that like basically 10x's the cost of the Watcher's Eye, so trying to keep things like budget friendly, you know, by not doing that. I have made a few changes to the mercenary. I've switched over to a Cosprey's Will with some good corrupted implicits on it. I've also then switched over to a nice pair of Pain Seekers with both Despair on hit and Temp Chains on hit, and then it's still a decent roll on the amount of extra damage, you know, being applied into the ailment application. There were some questions about whether Rash Kaldor's Patience works. It does. I mean, it clearly makes it so that your mercenary always ignites on hit, and then she does enough damage to freeze and shock on her own. Having Call of the Void really helps. Winter Weave is pretty helpful as well. Pyroshock Clasp is the main reason that I care about the Ignite, and the Ignite will work no matter, like, as long as she does at least 1 point of fire damage, and she does thanks to Pain Seeker, she'll ignite on every hit. And then that means with her shocking and igniting, enemies are converting 30% of their fizz damage into elemental, which makes them way less dangerous for me. You know, I'm also getting a lot of damage reduction out of Call of the Void and a lot of damage increase out of Ahuana's Bite. And then I did switch over, instead of using Learcast, I switched over to Armageddon Crown here. Well, you know, whatever. Any Hunter Helm that has the nearby enemies have -9 Chaos Res suffix. Yeah. Suffix modifier, and then just like some life and resistances on it. And then she's using a Voltaxic Rift because I'm withering everything for her, so she's hitting really hard. And she's like 90% shocking all the time thanks to Voltaxic Rift, so it's working pretty well. And then these are the boots that I'm using on the Mercenary. These are Veiled boots that have the suffix % increased effective non-damaging ailments, which just means her shock and her chill are even stronger. Again, pushing up into that 90% shock range pretty often. I have added that as a config. Here, you can very easily turn any of these configs off just by putting a hash in front of it, and then it'll turn red. Now it's off. But I've added all of these mods in. Nearby enemies have -9 Chaos Res, 40% max effective shock, and then the like enemies chilled by your hits lessen their damage dealt from the Call of the Void, and then the Ahuana's Bite bonus. Enemies have their damage taken increased by chill effect. And then the Pyroshock Clasp belt mod isn't working as well. Like you can see, it's not affecting Fizz max hit when I hash these out. That's fine. But you can see that the others do. Like you can see my damage goes down significantly when I hash out the Ahuana's Bite mod, and my tankiness goes down significantly when I hash out the Call of the Void mod. So I am taking advantage of all of these. You know, I do have them set. I'm assuming about a 50% shock, which I think is fairly reasonable. She's hitting 90% pretty often. So that's basically where we're at on me and the Mercenary working together. Really love her. All right, I just finished recording and I realized I hadn't re-added the little Despair from Mercenary line in here, so I just wanted to add this in so that you could see this. and not be like, why is the POB in the description giving so much more DPS than the one in the video? Here you go. So I would say realistically, I'm doing, yeah, I think about 20 to 25 million DPS in my current setup, with all buffs rolling, with the Merc doing what she does, despairing everything, everything stacked up. I think 25 million DPS is, it feels like I'm doing about 25 million DPS in mapping and uber bossing, so this does seem correct. All right, final thing that I want to touch on is the question of Widowhail, because this has been asked a lot. So I do have a Widowhail. It's in my stash right here. It's a pretty close to perfect Widowhail. It is 250%. It is corrupted with an attack speed roll. That attack speed roll can range anywhere from 3 to 5%. If you get an enchant on it, which you obviously can't do once it's corrupted, that is only going to add, if it's a 20% Widowhail, that's only going to add 2% increased attack speed. So the difference between it being a 5% versus 3% with a craft, they're the same. So not super important, you know, but not bad if you can get it. This costs about 10 divines, fairly expensive. The issue with it is really simple. If you just take this Widowhail and you just slap it into the build like so, it's a 10% DPS loss compared to the Thicket Bow with, you know, 5 real mods and then just a crafted Chaos Dot multi, the Recombo Bow. What you have to do in order to take advantage of Widowhail is have a lightning coil, or really any body armor, but lightning coil is, I think, the best body armor, that has some combination of corruption implicits that add level of socketed gems. And so those are prohibitively expensive. Here we go. I have a search here with looking for 2 of the following. There's +1 level of socketed gems. That is the best one. There's +2 to AoE, projectile, or duration gems. Those are all pretty good. So the cheapest body armor that fits this category is 100 divines. So Widowhail, technically speaking, if you set it up in this setup here, right, +1 level of socketed gems, +2 level socketed AoE gems. If you swap Toxic Rain over to be on your body armor, and then you switch to the Widowhail, there you go, pretty big DPS increase. The problem is it is reliant on having the body armor that gives you a lot of socketed gem level, and then socketing your Toxic Rain link into that, and swapping your Caustic Arrow link over into the Widowhail. On its own, Widowhail just added to a setup that doesn't have like gem levels coming from the body armor is a strict downgrade from a rare Thicket Bow. Now, how do you get a lightning coil with a nice double corrupted implicit? Well, you either spend time with Alva double corrupting lightning coils and hope you get lucky, or you farm up like 100 divines and buy one from somebody else who has wasted a bunch of their time doing that. Ultimately, the setup I'm using with the rare bow is working. It's destroying everything. I don't think the Widowhail setup is required, but it is an upgrade path that I'll probably pursue going forward. So that's the update for Toxic Rain. It's great, it's insanely strong, it's a league starter, it's a league finisher. There's still a ton of room to keep upgrading it and pushing it beyond uber bosses and blasting tier 17s, and I'm definitely going to keep doing that. It's still really, really fun. And that's it. Be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video, and join the Skipping Sleep Studio Discord so you can say hello to me and Sunset if you haven't already. And finally, thank you to all of our channel members. If you want to support us so we can keep making more PoE content, become a channel member as well. Thanks for watching. Bye.